Hello and welcome to the Marina Perry Podcast. I am, as always, your host. And today I often say I have someone special. I mean, everyone is special, but truly, Erika is probably a little more special than special. So Erika Cramer, the queen of confidence, today is going to be absolute fire. I just know it. I don't think this woman has any other dial or dimension to tap into. She is an international confidence coach. She's a 5-star podcast host. She's often called the Cardi B of personal development. Hello, can we stop and take a second? And actually, in all honesty, though, your story, Erika, is beautiful. She has survived many traumatic experiences, including childhood sexual abuse, in and out of foster care, car accidents, a whole lot of loss. And yet she is a beaming, beautiful example of healing your story and transforming trauma into triumph. She has a beautiful mission on her heart, which is to empower a community of women globally who want deep connection, accountability, and encouragement to go for the life that they desire. So you are speaking my language, Erika. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I cannot wait to dive into all things confidence, because who doesn't want a little more of that?
Yes. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm really, really excited to chat with your beautiful listeners and your amazing show and what you stand for. So I just want to acknowledge you and thank you so much.
Bless. Well, Erika, thank you. And on this show, the first question we ask is, if you had an animal that best represented your spirit, your way of being, what would that be and why?
The hummingbird.
Oh, that's fine. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yes.
I just got some hummingbird earrings from a beautiful Puerto Rican lady in America who makes them. I have to send you the link.
Send me the link.
Yeah, I feel like just the big journey and the sustenance and the energy that little bird has. And we're little. I'm little. Are you little?
Well, I don't know that I would classify myself
little.
Like it's all relative. How tall are you?
I'm like 5'3", like 5'2", 5'3". And I'm a little bit short. So I'm like, I feel like it's small but mighty, and it has so much energy and a mission, and it's on vision, and it doesn't need much, but it does need, and I got that about the retreat. Like it still needs to sustain and nourish itself, and stopping in order to keep going on that big journey. So how funny we have the same.
That is funny. That's so beautiful. And and I think the thing about a hummingbird is it looks like, to the other people around them, it can look like they're just going so fast, but to the hummingbird, that's a really easy pace, which is one of the things I've noticed, about myself, and I'm sure you have too, that not everyone operates at our level of speed, mentally, emotionally, physically, like on all the levels. Yeah. Okay. And then the second question we asked, just to break the ice and get to know you beyond, your story and your mission, is, if you could have a superpower, which superpower would you choose and why?
Oh, damn, that's a good question. If I could have a superpower. Oh, I always think like being invisible, but then it's like, I don't want to be invisible. Like, you don't want that. I think if I could teleport, that would be awesome.
Yes.
If I could be everywhere, whatever I wanted to be, if I could like do that man who's in that movie, what's the movie, the Doctor Strange, and that guy that's got the circle, if I could have one of those things.
Just step through and be somewhere else. I love
it. I'm here. Let's inspire people everywhere and visit my mother and then leave when I'm ready.
Although I guess that's what the internet has allowed you to do, right?
Yeah. Internet podcasting, right? We have a global microphone. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is in a way. So tell us about your journey to being the queen of confidence. I mean, that's a big title.
Yeah.
That's a powerful title that has so much energy in it. So how, Erika, did that come to be?
Yeah, from the ghettos of Boston and the trauma to like, I'm now the queen of confidence. Well, the first thing I'll say is that title is my alter ego, and it's a title that I aspire for all the women that I serve. So I am not the queen of confidence. It's like, you are the queen. Like, I believe all women are the queens of the world, and that when we see ourselves as that higher level and we treat ourselves that way, like, I am royalty. I am the top. I am the freaking commander here in my life. And confidence is about showing up and going even when it's hard, and really having that value for yourself. And so, I know you talk a lot about the sovereignty and like owning who you are, and you're creating your world. And so when I thought about the queen of confidence, I thought, what do women want and need support with in this world right now? And so the Queen of Confidence is my alter ego. I aspire to be her, but I believe you're her and she's her, and everyone can be that queen. So it's not who I'm not, I don't associate with like the crowns. And it's so funny. I actually have zero kind of care about a tiara, or I'm American, so I'm not connected to British or anything like that. And I said to my husband, I hate crowns and I'm not going to have a tiara. And it's just not the vibe. And on my wall in my old office, I got a guy come in and do graffiti painting, and he did a crown, of course. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like a ghetto crown. It's like a street crown. But yeah, that's our logo now. Okay, Marina. So
It actually sits, just so you know, it sits on your Zoom screen.
yeah.
Anyone who's watching this on YouTube, you can see the logo. It's awesome.
Look at the ring. It's like a crown. Someone made that for me. I was just like, all right, we're going to embody this. So, yeah, the name used to be called the Queen of Curves. Right before I started coaching, I was a stylist, a clothing stylist, supporting women, especially curvy women, because they struggled more than anyone to find clothing in Australia. So it was called the Queen of Curves. And a woman came up to me who was thin in her own view. She felt she was very thin and not curvy, and said, I'd love to come to your event, but it's only for curvy women. Are you going to do events for other people? And I was like, ooh, like I felt in my body that exclusion. And I was like, nah, I am not going to be associated with some women thinking they're welcomed, others thinking they're not. And so quickly we changed that name. So yeah, there's been a journey with that name. I didn't want to stand in that spotlight and be her. And my husband was like, honey, you know, women are looking for leaders, and women are looking for leaders. Humans are looking for leaders. And if I stand in my spotlight, it takes nothing away from your spotlight or her spotlight. I believe we all have a stand and a spotlight. And some people, their stand is empty. And they're waiting for permission, or they feel bad. And I'm like, there are people that are there waiting for you to take up that space, because they want to look to you, and they need to look to you for anything: inspiration, guidance, business advice, you know, life-changing advice, mothering, parenting. Like, we need to stand in the spotlight. So for a long time, I really fought being the queen, you know, the air quotes, like Queen of Confidence. I was like, oh, I don't want to, that's not who I am. And just, you know, the last 2 years, I've really stepped into it and been like, I'm going to be the leader in my space, and she'll be the leader in her space. And we need more, because as you know, the work that you do, we could have 1 million of us and it wouldn't be enough, you know? So it's an abundant space. So it's a little story with that name. Yeah. But for me, I guess I grew up in America. I had a really turbulent upbringing, childhood, lots of abuse and abandonment issues, because my mom, you know, was in and out of in and out of mental hospitals. And so it just created this turbulent adolescent. And so I was constantly looking to be validated. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I belonged. I had no sense of belonging and zero confidence, and really angry. Like, my anger as a child came out in my adolescence, and I would get in trouble, and I was fiery, you know, still a little bit fiery, but it was very fiery growing up. And I, at 17, joined the military. So in high school, I joined the army because I thought that's the only way I'd be able to get out of where I was. I knew that I wanted to get away from where I was. Like, that was I want to get away from here, move across the country. I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart and just running away, basically. And that was a really big adventure for us. He went away to Iraq and to war, and I went to boot camp when the towers were hit. It was just really hectic times. And then when he came home, I ended up basically going full time in the army and kind of trading my life and my freedom and my desires for him, because I felt bad that he didn't get to live. And so one night we were out drinking and driving, and I ended up breaking my back in a really terrible car accident. Like, flew out of the car, didn't have a seatbelt on, was in the hospital for 30 days, had to learn how to walk again. It was horrible. And Marina, I thought that was my wake up call. I was like, oh, what am I doing in the military? I'm going to go to hair school. I'm going to live my life. I started modeling, and it was fun, but it wasn't truly in alignment, because I wasn't sure of what I wanted. And the following year, I was doing really well. I was on magazines, I was doing shows, like everything was rocking for me. And my husband was out by himself drinking and driving alone, and didn't have a seatbelt. And unfortunately, he passed away. And that was kind of just like, I was 23, 24. And I had so much trauma and turbulence in my life that I was like, I can't handle this. And so I numbed out for 3 years until I met someone in Las Vegas who was Australian. He wasn't a great guy, but I couldn't see it. I just didn't value myself. I felt broken, damaged, messed up. I felt like something was wrong with me, or I was cursed. So I followed this man to Australia, pretended my life wouldn't follow me, all my stuff, which it does. Your stuff follows you. I had all my baggage that was like, I'll leave it over there, but it came across the ocean. And he wasn't a good man. I met another man who wasn't a good man until I met my husband, who was my personal trainer. And he was into shamanic healing and meditation and breath work and universe. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And after being with him for 12 months, investing in myself, I changed my life completely. In 12 months, I was another person. And, I decided I wanted to do this. 8 years after working on myself, I decided I want to support women to do this. So it was a big journey. I didn't go start healing and then go help people, which I think a lot of people do. I really needed to heal a lot. So I spent almost a decade doing that before I started the Queen of Confidence.
Wow, what a powerful story. And you know what hits me as you share it, and I'm sure there's so many things in there that people would be like, tap in more to that, tap in more to that. But what hits me is someone who is such an advocate for growth work, right? Such an advocate for deconditioning and realigning. Like that's what our School of Growth is all about, growth work.
Yeah.
And when I hear what you said there, it just really hit me when you said, I thought that was my wake-up call. It just is so powerful because so many people have big things happen and then they go, that's it. And then what I heard you say through your story is there's layers, and that sometimes it's a redirection, and sometimes where you think it's the bottom, there's kind of it's not necessarily a lower bottom, but it's definitely another valley before you get to the top of a mountain to keep going. And I love that that then, what really healed you was just the growth work. Like you can't run away from your story. You can't run away from your trauma. You're bringing it everywhere you go, there you are, as they say, right? And I love that. And, as someone who's just such an advocate for growth work, to hear that what really was the medicine that your soul was craving was just you to do the work, as we say. That's so beautiful. And equally, anyone listening definitely can't be sitting here going, oh, well, she's always had it easy. She was obviously just the confident girl in school. Look at her. She's gorgeous. All of those stories. And notice somehow I dropped into my version of American accent. So I don't know why that happened. But I just love that. And so, when you say you did your work and then you felt compelled, was it just from a place of, I want everyone to feel like this? Like for people who are listening, and I know many of my listeners, because, I coach coaches too. So people who are here to do light work and here to help others rise, really do tune into this frequency. And sometimes they often still feel like they haven't learned enough, or they're not where they need to be, or they do run a lot of imposter syndrome or good enoughness, ironically, in their desire to help people overcome it. So at what point, I know you said it was, 8 years after doing your deep dive, but what was it in you that said, you know what, now, step forward now?
Yeah. Well, I think, to be honest, and this is just my belief, doesn't mean it's gospel, but I really believe that until you work with yourself and learn to truly love yourself, not like #love yourself, not like get a massage and jump in the bathtub. It's not what I mean. I mean, like genuinely internally are okay with who you are and what you've been through, how your body looks. You genuinely value you, and you know that you're number one in your world. I don't believe that we can then care for others when we're not fully fulfilled. That's just my belief. So I didn't give a shit about anyone. I honestly I had zero interest in helping a fellow human. I was still working on me. I was like, I don't even know if I like myself. I think I'm broken. I think I'm damaged. I think something's wrong with me. I think I'm messed up. So if anybody listening has ever felt like that, we're not in a space to serve. You need service. So for me, I was really like, I need to attend to me. There's a lot here that needs my attention, and I haven't given myself my own attention for so many years. And then I had my mom not give me attention, or, seeking validation in all the wrong places. So I really felt for me, I needed to give myself that care and that love and that validation and do me. I didn't have children, by the way. So if you have kids, don't compare, because I didn't have kids. I was married, but that's all I had. It was me and Hamish, and we were on the same journey. And so it wasn't until I started really unraveling the big stuff and seeing my beliefs that I'm not good enough, that I'm a stupid Spanish girl from the hood, because I'm not white and college educated, I won't make money. There's a gatekeeper, all that stuff that I was believing, until I saw through the work, through the growth, and through coaches and mentors, that was just a belief that I had learned because of my conditioning. Until I got that awareness, I didn't really go, oh my gosh, other people feel this too. I was really enrolled in my own story and really healing that. And I didn't care about other people until I did. Oh, and when I did, I like fell in love with humanity. It's like when you have a baby, or if you buy an animal, a baby, puppy, or whatever, and your eyes change. You're like, and your heart gets this like openness. And I'm not saying you can't get to that level, but it's a different level. When you have a baby, when you own this baby animal, like it's a different level of love and compassion. And I reached that. And then I was like, I couldn't look at humans anymore. I was like, I could see who people wanted to be. I could hear their hopes and dreams. I could see their fears. And that to me was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of supporting, not fixing, because no one needs fixing, but I wanted to support their dreams and desires. And that took me a long time, just me. It doesn't mean it will take everyone, but I do see in our industry, a lot of people jump into programs, their first time dealing with their shit, and 4 months into it, oh, I want to be a coach. And I'm like, are you avoiding all your shit that you still haven't unraveled? So there is a little, you got to know thyself. If you're avoiding it, that's not a great time to step into service, you know?
I agree. And I also agree with you that the more the more work I do and the more people that I work with, the more in love with humanity I am.
Yeah.
Because we're really just creating so much suffering unnecessarily for ourselves. And we all do it, is the awareness that you come to. And so, I love to give tangibles or insights for people. So for someone listening who's like, yes, I know that I am not in self-acceptance yet. And, whether they want to help people or they just want to be their best version of themselves out of their family, right? So they know that they're not in self-acceptance. They've just heard you say, I got to see my beliefs. So beliefs work is absolutely fundamental and critical. And you can do that with a coach. You can do that with programs. You can, journaling can help with that. But what would you say for someone listening who's like, all right, I feel inspired. I feel inspired to look at my quote unquote shit. I feel inspired to level up in a way that allows me to step into more self-acceptance, more self-love. What tangible things for you were the difference that made the difference? Or what are the things that you still do today that you think these are fundamental? And I think more people need to step into that.
Yeah, well, the number one word that I lead my life besides integrity is responsibility. So I didn't, and if you're listening to this and you're like, how do I do this? How do I do this? You need to look in the mirror and genuinely get to that place where you're like, the common denominator in my life is me. It's not because of my mother, because of my husband, because of that man, because of the narcissist, because I was an only child, because I was sexually abused, because I'm Puerto Rican, so I was doing that until in Australia, that second relationship dumped me on my birthday. Thank you so much, Roy. I looked in the mirror and I went, shit, I am the common denominator in the hot mess that is my life. I couldn't keep blaming them, the narcissist, because my husband died, and I had a lot of stuff to blame. And maybe you do too, listener. Maybe there's a lot of stuff that you could go, well, you don't understand. This thing happened to me. Cool. There's a lot of people in the world. And I look to these people like Viola Davis, like Oprah, like Tony Robbins, that have literally, like, Oprah shouldn't be alive. Like, she had the worst life. Viola Davis, I don't know how she's alive. And I look for people that have had similar or worse or horrible things happen, and they are thriving. So number one, find evidence of people that have moved through difficulty that are thriving, because they exist. What are you looking for? You're going to find what you're looking for. Number two, have you fully taken responsibility? Responsibility doesn't mean fault. Will Smith shared this once and I loved it. I made a reel about it. It was like, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It's not my fault that I was sexually abused my whole life, but it is my responsibility now to not think all men are assholes, or all men are going to abuse me, or all men are going to sexualize me. That's not true. And so now that's my responsibility. So the number two would be really, truly, have you taken responsibility for the life that you currently have? The results, the lack of everything you have right now is your responsibility, especially if you're a grown up. Like when you're an adult, that's on you. And really the third one, once you take responsibility and you can see how you are the common denominator, you start to work on the number one biggest thing that's messing with you. So we're not going to change our whole life. For me, it was relationship. So I worked on the relationship and the worthiness. Maybe for someone else, it's money. Maybe you're listening to this and you're not happy in your job. You're not happy. Maybe you need to make that decision and really work on your career, purpose, work, business. And that's going to move so much space and so much energy that it's going to free up and make everything around your life shift. So it's not change your whole life. I didn't change my whole life. I changed one thing that was really messing with me. And that trickled and gave me energy and freedom and movement, fluidity. And then I was able to transform everything in that time, and I'm still growing this. I'm not,
Oh, I love that. Perfect. And for those listening, what I really heard you say there too is that you have to chunk it down, because if you're trying to eat it's a terrible metaphor, but if you're trying to eat the whole elephant, you're not going to get there in one bite, right? And so we have to start. And I also love that you're saying take radical responsibility, because that, if we don't do that, like I remember when I was first in business, what I realized was you can blame everyone around you, but then you can't fix anything. Or you can just take radical responsibility, and suddenly now you're at cause instead of effect, right? Like you're putting yourself at cause. Yeah. And the past is in the past, but that can be hard for people. So, whilst we can say, the past is in the past, and if you keep telling the story, you're the one bringing it forward. Yes, they might have taken, there's all those metaphors and examples of someone took 5 minutes, but you've given them 5 years by reliving it, which I think then sometimes metas them down on themselves. It's like, oh, well, now I'm doing the thing where I'm supposed to let it go. And then they beat themselves up even more for not letting it go.
Yeah.
So for you, because you have a lot of, capital T trauma, really. I mean, I know many people experience trauma and we edit ourselves and we become less whole just through small things in small ways all the time. But even with capital T trauma, how did you get to a place where you were like, yes, that happened. And yes, that happened. And I get what you're saying. It's not my fault. It's my responsibility. Was it really just, you drew a line in the sand? Like, how did you say, I'm not, like, for someone who's maybe running that story, I'm the stupid Spanish girl, or men are all assholes, and, no one's really taking care of me, or whatever the stories were. To really move forward from there, was it, and I noticed at the beginning, I love that Shigo that you said. I've never heard that, your alter Shigo. Does any of that happen, or was it that you found different parts of yourself? Like, how did you say, you know what, I'm not going to believe that story anymore in a tangible way?
Yeah. I think, well, it's beautiful that you break it down like that, because first you have to have the awareness. Like, you have to see that, oh my gosh, I always get into these relationships. Oh my gosh, I never have any money. Oh my gosh, I still hate my body and I'm 40. Oh, there's patterns, right? So number one, if you could start paying attention to that and you notice without judging, just noticing, this has been a problem, and that equals me. So that's where I got that I'm the common denominator, and I flipped it on me because I kept blaming outside people. But if 70,000 people tell me, that I'm offensive, I should probably start looking at that. 1 or 2 trolls on Instagram, who gives a shit? But if 50 people tell you, I invite you to start looking at it. So that's the first one. So I was like looking at the patterns and saying, okay, this needs to stop, and it's still going. The other thing is, we can't change anything through anger and judgment. You can't. So, and we suck at this. I'm going to straight up say it as a coach and therapist, we suck at compassion for ourselves. So if you don't understand why you're seeking validation, if you don't understand that your parents divorcing when you were 4 years old made you feel, like abandoned, and now in relationships, you're clingy and you're manipulative, and not because it's your fault, but that's what you learned. If you don't understand that the 4-year-old little girl who got bullied and nobody helped her because mom told you, it's okay, you'll be right, like, it's okay. And no one actually gave her tools or supported her, so the bullying didn't stop. So she became a people pleaser, or she became introverted, or she could be whatever. If you don't actually understand what was happening for you at that time, and it was when you were a kid, because that's when the shit happens. We all know this, not to get psychotherapy on you, but it's true. You know this, right? If you don't understand, then you have zero compassion. So then you enter your own shit with judgment and anger and guilt and shame, and none of it will change. You will keep repeating that cycle. So once you realize what's happening, you have to find, and I'm going to say it, you can't do it alone. You won't be compassionate to yourself. You're going to be hard on yourself. You're going to go, well, how stupid was I that I let that man take advantage of me? And I can't believe how stupid I was that, I hear women all the time. And I'm like, whoa, how old were you when you learned that? Oh, well, when I was 4. Okay, cool. So would you tell a 4-year-old they were stupid? No, I would never say that to my kid or my niece. Okay, so what do you need? That 4-year-old version of you, that 12-year-old version of you, that whatever version of you, that 18-year-old version of you, they need some compassion, some love, some understanding. The anxious part of you doesn't need judgment. She has something to say, so can you hear her? So I entered through compassion with myself. I got to see myself as a kid going through what I went through, and then realizing that that kid developed survival skills and things that weren't useful as an adult. I say all the time, like, what supported you as a kid is going to fuck you up as a grown up, because I was crazy. I was fighting. I was a psycho. Like I was fighting and I was crazy and I was like getting in trouble, beating people up, trying to be strong through force. If I did that as a grown up, I'd be arrested. Like that doesn't work anymore. So that's what I would say. You have to find that inner compassion and be kind to yourself. You're not binge eating because you're lazy and gross and you don't care. You're looking for support. You're looking for relief. You're looking for something. That's okay. I'm looking for relief too. You look for relief as well. It's just the way that you're doing it. So how can we enter with some compassion? Because the hate and the judgment and the self-anger is not going to get you the change. You're just going to feel guilty.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel that compassion is so much easier if we all just had the belief or the understanding, and as you and I do as coaches, because of the work that we've done, if we all had the understanding that all behavior is designed to be an act of love, all behavior. If we came with that, then that piece of compassion becomes a little easier, because then we can lean in with curiosity. Well, hang on, this behavior looks really effed up. How or when, rather?
I mean, self-behavior?
Yeah, like just all self-behavior, right? Like all behavior, even the fighting as an adult who's fighting, that's really a loving behavior learned at a time where it was at one point potentially the best option available, or the best. It's not actually showing up as love now, but its origin is love. And that, I think, empowers compassion, right? Because if I can recognize that I'm not my behavior, but my behavior is not, it's not serving me, as you said, but at one point I birthed it to keep myself safe.
Yeah, like a survival mode. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the highest form of love, is to keep something alive. So,
100%. Yeah. I think of when it I think of like another person, like if somebody's abusing you, they're not doing it out of love. Like that's out of their own fear. Maybe they're seeking love, but it's like love or fear, right? So definitely I think with ourselves, but when it comes to other people, I would lead with, is this supporting me? Do I feel loved by that verbal abuse? Or do I feel, because that man that I had was, the first guy I came to Australia for, he technically, air quotes, loved me, but I was getting all the verbal abuse, all of the neglect. It wasn't showcasing love. And because that's how I was looked after as a kid, I was verbally abused. I was physically abused. I latch on to that, and that's love, but that ain't love. Like that wasn't good. Like I didn't see it because I thought that's what I deserved until I realized that I had no love for myself. So why would anybody come and treat me good? Of course, I'm going to attract that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where those relationships, as you say, we perfectly come together with our wounds. If we come with awareness, they can be opportunities for healing. But so often we keep kind of, the universe keeps giving us opportunities to heal, and yet we're actually just continuing to believe the story and believing it's evidence. And I loved what you said earlier, and I actually want to double back on that when you said seek evidence or find role models, because, we know that the way the brain makes a belief is it has a thought, which is just a thought, and then it seeks evidence for it, or that evidence or experience then affirms it and locks it in. And the more we do that, the stronger the beliefs get locked in. So when people often say to me, well, how do I stop believing it? It's literally, first of all, question it. Is that true? Is it true in all instances? Is it true for everyone? Where is it not true? Like sit in what I call disbelieving, and then look for evidence for the contrary, because as you rightly pointed out, what we focus on is what we first of all expand, and then what we get. And so I have one of my staff is just mad obsessed with you. She's like girl crush crazy. Yeah.
Caitlin, I love you.
Caitlin loves you, babe. Yeah. And actually she's a really amazing coach, and she is phenomenal, particularly in the space of helping people with their inner critic and body confidence. And she's definitely what you would call like a curvy goddess. Like she's got days. Yeah. And it's been a journey for her. So she and I were talking before, and I said, what do you really want me to ask Erika? And she said, well, I think it would be really beneficial because she's such a boss babe in business. And I said, that's a great point. So we've talked a little bit about stepping into confidence and, self-awareness, all of the things being critical, but stepping forward as a personal brand, and then stepping forward in a leadership role, and then scaling that, as an entrepreneur too, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And I see a lot of people who want to do it, who really want to do it. It's on their heart.
Yeah.
They just, either they don't know, is it strategy? Is it identity? Like, what would you be saying? Okay, for all of you who out there who really want to step into your power in a way that's amplified because you're sitting or standing or shining on a stage, you're being heard and being seen, so much more stuff comes up. So can you speak to that? Like, what would be your tips or advice for people who'd love to take their message or their impact bigger and brighter like you have done?
Yeah. So I think that for me, when I look at business, and I laugh at my business group because I'm like, I'm the life coach, business coach. So I will always come back to, like, we cry in our business coaching calls because it's all personal. Before you make 200K a year, and I would even say 500, it's mindset. I know, and I hate it because it's that same word, but it's really a belief or a thought that I can't do it. It's the distraction. It's the, oh, what if people see me? It's the caring what other people think. It's not strategy.
Yeah.
It's not strategy at all. It's like, get out of your own way. Stop stopping yourself. So I think one of the things that supported me in the business side was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's very masculine and very go, hustle. And now he's shifting his gears a little bit, which I love. But at the time, I needed a piece of that. I needed a piece of permission. Show up, tell your story. Like, who are you and why should people care? We have billions of accounts on social media. Why should I watch you? Like, why? Like, what are you here for? If it's just about you and getting your own validation and your message isn't about others, so you start to tap into, yeah, why do I want to do this business? Why do I want to be a me brand? Why do I want to show up? What's really driving me? And most of the time, when done for the right reasons, you're going to get a whole bunch of people that you see, groups of people, problems, support systems, communities that you can help. And you're going to get to see this greater impact that you're a part of. It's not all on you, but you're a part of. And there's a distinction, because when we hustle, we think we're the only ones. I'm a piece of this shift, but you're also a piece, and I'm carrying my piece. But if I drop it, there are other people. It's not all on me. And so what I loved about him was, like, get your story out there, understand why you want to help people. Who do you want to help? What impact you want to make? And act as if you have the cure for cancer in your industry. Like, if I don't show up, I don't get to be permission giving. I don't get to show women that I'm an example of a woman of color making 100K a month. I don't get to, if I don't show up, women don't get to see what's possible. Doesn't mean they'll never see that. But if I don't do it, my dharma, my purpose is not getting done. So then who's going to pick up my purpose? No one. They're going to pick up theirs. I'm picking up mine. And so he just gave me real strong permission. And also, I will say, financially, we were screwed. Like, we were in the worst position we'd been in as grown-ups financially. So I had fire in my ass cheeks. Like, I was burning inside, burning. And I was burning because I had to. I didn't have the luxury of, I'm just going to mess around and plot around the house. No, like, we literally couldn't buy bread. We were looking for coins. We had no money. We were in debt. I had a second baby. We bought a new car. It was a hot mess. No one was coming to save us and help us. So I think a lot of us, number one, we're not on fire. We're not focused. We're looking to the sidelines. We're worried about social media, and you have the luxury to do that. And I love you, but I got to say it. It's a luxury. If you're doubting yourself and you're not stepping into your power, it's because something you're allowed to. That's a privilege. People that I know in America, they're pregnant, 8 months pregnant. They're on a bus to their third job at 2 a.m. They don't have the privilege of questioning, is my boss think I'm good at what I do? Like, there's no jobs over there. So the American hustle that I brought to Australia really helped me, if I'm honest. I don't know if I was raised here, I would have had that same hustle, because we are so blessed in Australia. It's a rich ass country. We got money. There are jobs. People sit at home for $750 a week. Like, it blows my mind. I'm like, what? And there's not a lot of competition. So you don't become like, oh, let's go, let's innovate. We get very comfortable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you don't do your inner work, like your school of growth, if you don't do the growth work, all of your personal shit will show up in your business. All of your personal shit will show up on your Instagram. All of your personal money shit will show up in your money business. So if you work on you, I honestly think that the first thing to do is work on you. The business will be so easy, because you'll be able to serve, and you'll be able to not worry about that stuff that boggles us when we're in the self-work.
Yeah, I have to say, your reframe just there of self-doubt being a privilege, that's just like, that's huge. I can see who that would relate to. Like, I'm just like,
you're like, oh yeah.
Mic drop. That's a privilege, bitch, to worry.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a really great perspective to hold. And then I do want to just dive, I know you've answered this, but I want to ask it at a slightly deeper nuance. So when you said, because I also agree, if you don't have any alternative, you're going to do it, right? So having that safety net is in some ways often for many of us, because we are in a privileged state, kneecapping us.
Yeah.
And yet, now you are in a place where you can say, I've got this community and I make X amount of money. And so everything you're saying is so aligned and you are in the frequency of that. And I feel like I'm again speaking particularly, I guess, for new coaches or fledgling entrepreneurs or people stepping into a new space. So if they are in a place of, that's where I want to be, but I know I'm not there yet. And that's true. They're not there yet. They're not making six figures.
Yeah.
And yet they do want to show up. What's your advice for them? Like, obviously they can't say I'm doing this, therefore I am a beacon of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get my kind of question.
Yeah.
Well, what's your advice for when you first started showing up? And obviously you're not saying, oh, I'm making six figures because at the moment we can't buy bread and we've got babies on the way. But what were you saying? Or was it really just the why? You were coming back to how you wanted them to feel?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we have to be clear on who we help. And what I do with my ladies in Scale Startup Squad is, how do we know who we want to help if we don't know what we've went through? So I love, and like I said, integrity. I'm not going to help a man with his spiritual journey. I'm not a man. And that doesn't mean we can't help men, but I know fuck all about being a man. Nothing. I think I know what masculine is. I can read books about it. But being a man going through a spiritual journey, my husband, he could help that man so much more. And the integrity and owning that story, he owns it 10,000 times better. It's like wearing that red lipstick and really wearing it versus going, oh, do I look okay? You're like, oh my gosh, just wear it, So I love to go, who are you? What have you been through? What's your story? What have you overcome? What do you know? Like you know? What is your juice? What do you know? And it's like, let me 2 to 3 stories that you have that there are people out there that could resonate with. Lead with your story so people know. Like, I get women that open up so much because I got metaphorically naked on the internet. I went, look at me. This is all my story, all my shit. I said, we don't have money. I said, I'm working for L'Oreal breastfeeding and doing my coaching business on my Instagram Live. There was no secrets. There was no pretending to be professional and get it right. I went, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making this shit up, but let me be here because it's to serve you. So it's about the real, the raw. It's about really owning your story and then finding people that have that same struggle that you've already overcome. You don't need college to give you that. If you've done IVF 17 rounds and, it didn't happen for you, but you were able to heal that grief because you had tools and you did this. And now you want to help women that are going through IVF that are feeling overwhelmed. Yes, get some coaching and NLP skills. Of course, that's going to help. But you technically have walked the flames and got burnt and healed that to be able to walk other people through the flames. So I just started talking about the shit that I know. The trauma, the not caring what people think, that stuff, the confidence. And I just went, what are the top 10 to 20 questions my client has around that? So know your story, find your niche. I know people say don't find a niche. I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think broke people say don't find your niche. You know why? Because if you talk to everybody, you talk to nobody. So initially, for your first 7 figures, one target market, one problem you're solving for one group of people with one program, one, source of conversion. 1 year, you'll make 7 figures. And that's what we did with the sisterhood. After that, then yes, branch off, build a brand, do all the things. But I think when we're young and we come into this and young-minded, we go, I'm going to have 75 programs. I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to take over the world and be on Oprah's couch. It's like, just do one and focus on the one. And when you get the one, you'll have more resources, money, time, staff that you can then go the next thing. So I really feel you need to know your story. I really feel you need to share that. So that means you need to show up. If you're hiding, get your ass on the internet, because people are not going to trust you if you don't show up. And if you don't tell me why I should believe you, if you don't let me in, especially if you're a coach or a healer or a therapist, if you don't let me into your life, I'm not going to trust you. And I'm not going to feel safe with you because I'm going to think you're the queen of confidence and you're perfect and you're in pink and everything's beautiful in your life. You don't get me. You don't understand me. Why should I pay you to help me? But if I go, listen, this is my fucked up past and I still doubt myself and I recently had this experience and I let you in, you're going to trust me. You're going to know me. You're going to decide if you like me or you don't like me. And then you're going to work with me. So we got to get clear on who we help. And then it doesn't matter what you charge. You could charge $5 a session. You could do it for free to get that experience. But if you don't know who you're helping, you don't know what their problems are, you're not going to create great content. You're going to be all over the place trying to please everyone. You really need to talk to that one group of people and get into their heads and be with them.
Yeah.
That's what I would say if you're starting out.
I love that. There's
Yeah.
so much wisdom in just that. I'm going to make all our graduating coaches listen to that on repeat. That was
Yes.
pure
Oh,
gold.
thank
Yeah,
you.
pure gold. And so for yourself, now that you've scaled, because, as a woman who runs her own stories from her past, and just listening to you and your, as a child having to kind of parent your parent or take care of your
Yeah.
parent, I can imagine that surrendering or receiving rather support would have been an edge for your system. And yet to grow a business, that's necessary to scale a business. So I suppose the last thing I'd love you to share for those who are beyond that point, who are showing up and who are growing, what was say something you really had to come into an awareness of, or a distinction you had to make to go into that next level, either with your team or your expansion? How did you, grow from there?
Yeah. Well, I think that first year I hustled, and I realized that you can't hustle forever. You need some healthy hustle.
Yeah.
And I think you need to do uncomfortable sacrifices and all that in the beginning. I really feel that's the initiation. And if you skip that, I feel you don't get in, like like motherhood. You get initiated into motherhood. You can't judge mothers. Then you go judging, and then you have a baby. You're like, oh shit. So there's an initiation in business, and that time period, however it is, it's a season, and it's crazy, and it's hype, and it's where you're doing all your growth and beginning. And then you get to a place where you start to pace, and you're doing this marathon now, because in the beginning, you don't believe it's a marathon. You think it's a sprint, and you almost need to prove the marathon with a quick sprint in the beginning. So now we're like, okay, we're here. We have more resources. Now we need to hire some help, get some people. And for me, we were talking before we recorded, I recently came back from a retreat, and I'm in a fantastic place financially in my business. I love my life and what we do. It's all great. And I have more vision and goals and dreams for 2023. But I got to a place at this retreat. I was doing equine therapy with horses, and I did this journey experience, which I'd never done. It was amazing. And I really got that I'm still currently being led subconsciously, small thread, deep-seated, old belief around my trauma and my fear. And so what that looked like for me in my business is I have a team. My husband's in my business. But I still am always on, always doing all the things, double checking, making sure, okay, it's on me. It's on me. And so I was in the paddock with the horses, and I said out loud to the therapist, I don't trust anyone. I don't even trust my husband to have my back. And it's not true, but in a piece, it was true. And what I meant by that was, at the end of the day, if I was going to bet on anything, it's on me. And that is my trauma. That's my 12-year-old who looked after my mom, that survived myself. I didn't have support. I didn't have anyone to help me. It was all on me. It's my vigilance from abuse. It's trauma response. So I am subconsciously at the core bottom, on top of all the happy shit at the bottom, is this core belief that I'm not good enough, and that if I have to do it, and if I don't do it, I lose everything. And it's like, what? And this horse came behind me, literally stood behind me and put his back on me. And she's like, he's here to support you. Like, it was beautiful. And I just started sobbing, and I'm like, wow. Cause I didn't realize, me being 24/7 on social media, because social media is 24/7, me answering 400 DMs a day, trying to answer 400 DMs a day, me going on my phone to answer DMs when my kids are in bed. When do I rest? Me being available, all my notifications being on, just on. And then I used my energy, which I do have a lot. I look at Tony Robbins, and I'm like, I reckon we have the same kind of illness, like just hype and energy all the time. When I wake up, I don't need coffee. When I go to bed, I'm hype. And so I was using my energy as a badge of honor. And I was like, oh, fuck. It was like an uppercut to myself at that retreat. I was journaling, and I'm like, oh my God, this needs to stop. Because how I started my business, and even how I got to 100K a month in my business, cannot be how I go to 10 million a year in my business. I have to lean on more people. I have to trust more. I have to let go. I have to be unavailable to others. I have to close. Like, business is closed. Instagram's open, but doesn't mean I got to be open. And that, honestly, that was such a big shift that I was ready for, because I had heard it before. If you're listening, it's like, yeah, rest. Yeah, stop. I wasn't ready. And I was ready to get that message and that gift. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. And now my notifications are off. I hired a social media person. I told my audience, there'll be other people in the DMs now. Like, you don't have access 24/7. I need to go in. So it's been a real big game changer. And I'm still trying to keep my little glow from Gwingana, if I'm honest. Trying to like, whoo, but it's navigating that. It's hard. It is really hard when you get to those higher levels. You have to rest and you have to stop and you have to ask for help. And you need to, I think, constantly be checking with where are you going? Or are you just doing daily shit? Are you reacting to messages and emails? Where are you going? And we do have a beautiful quarterly, massive quarterly intentional meeting that we do everything, and it resets our business every quarter, and it's amazing. And then at the end of the year, me and my husband do a big this year recap, next year vision. So we just stay. I think you got to keep your eyes on where you're going as well, and not get too daily task minded, because that can happen when we're so busy,
Yeah. And I think it lives in your nervous system, beyond, what we, like you're saying, we know we should rest. But if your nervous system since being a child has never, then that becomes the baseline, and this is why somatics is so important, like work in the body for people who don't know what somatics is. Yeah. And that's, that was a big shift for me, because if you're smart and you love to mentally masturbate about knowing all the things, oh, I got this, I got to do this, I got to do that. It's actually still just kind of like fuel you're putting on the fire, whereas actually learning to have your system really slow down and not do those things almost feels like a small death to the system, because it doesn't know it's survivable until we do it. And that's the irony. Until we do it, it doesn't know you can live through it. And so that is an edge I can relate to through my own growth as well. And so I hear you speak about your husband, and I'm wondering, to what degree do you feel having someone share the vision has been an aspect of your success? Or what about someone who's like, well, my husband has his own career, or we have really separate lives, and I do sometimes feel alone in it. And certainly, I can relate to this. I married my childhood sweetheart. We were together 17 years, built lots of companies. Then we divorced. And I've had my greatest awakening in ahas and deep growth work, spiritually, physically.
Wow.
And yet I can feel the contrast between having kind of like that wingman, wingwoman energy, because I've had that at different times. And so I know personally, it feels different, but I'm curious for you, for someone who, do you feel that people need that kind of intimate other, or do you think it's just an individual thing?
I don't think we need it. I just think, like love, we flourish more. Someone in love that I hire is going to be a great team member. They're going to have so much joy and overflowing. Someone who's single and unhappy and lonely and feels internally lonely is going to be different in a team. They're going to be a different staff member. There's going to be different energies. There's going to be different desires. So I remember one of my mentors was always like, love is your highest frequency. If you can find love and be in love, and that could be love from a child, that could be love from a friend or partner. But usually when you have someone that's walking this life with you that you can lean on and support, of course, it's always more fun and much better. But it's funny, when I was dealing with my money stuff, our first retreat I wanted to do, I was breastfeeding my kid. I was like, we're going to do this retreat. My husband's like, what are you talking about? In Bali? I'm like, I'm going to do this retreat in Bali. It's my spontaneous Gemini vibes. And I'm like, yep. And I'm breastfeeding. I'm looking up on my phone, Bali retreats. And I'm like, I found this place. I'm like, it's going to be $5,000 USD. We got to put down. We had no money. Okay. Marina, he's just like, what are you talking about? Are you trying to manifest right now? I'm like, no, we got to pay for it. We're going to have the retreat. He's like, how are we going to pay for it? And I'm like, you have to pay for it to sell tickets to pay for it. So it was one of those things where he wasn't seeing the evidence that this would work.
Yes.
And he didn't believe me. And why should he? I didn't have a business. I never did that. It's my first time. So for a long period, in that first 12 months or 11 months till we hit our 160 grand that first year, probably for the 8 months of that, we were unaligned when it came to money. Unaligned. He was not my cheerleader. I did a podcast about it. Like, I think I said, your partner doesn't need to be your cheerleader. That's the podcast. It's like, he was not on board. He thought I was crazy. He thought it was irresponsible, all his shit about his dad being an accountant and money. And I was like, I don't give a damn. I'm going to do it. You don't know me, whatever. So I didn't do it in spite of him. That's different energy. That's anger energy. I did it like, I'm going to do it. So you could think that, and I'm thinking this. It was like a wall around money in our home. Everything else was fine, but that was a wall. And so what I did was I just got to doing it. I got busy doing it. I made it happen and showed up on Instagram stories when we didn't have links or anything. And I was like, buy this ticket, whatever. We sold all these tickets to the retreat. We paid for a holiday to Thailand. And in Thailand, he was like, shit. Okay, I see. I'm like, do you understand? He's like, I get it. I'm like, cool. I'm like, I'm not going to come to you for money advice because you're not on the same frequency with me on money. And when you are, I'll know. So, you know, I'm not going to ask you about pricing because he's like operations. He's amazing. And I still don't ask him about pricing. We're not on the same frequency with money. I can charge whatever I want. I'm in abundance. Yeah. I've listened to different trainings than him. I've done different work around money than him. So as much as he worries about the profitability and not spending and wasting, he's amazing at that. I don't ask him about, what do I price this? How much money do you think we can make? I don't ask him that until we're at that same place. So we can coexist and support each other and love each other and not agree on everything. And I don't need to go to him for that. On the other stuff, he's incredible. And literally my business is what it is because of Hamish. My book is what it is because of him. We bounce a lot. We're the same person with complete different, he's yin and I'm yang. And we now are reversing. So he's taking some yang. I'm like, I could take you to America, dude. Like he's getting a little Puerto Rico and I'm taking his Zen. So I think it's great. It's not necessary. It's helpful, but not necessary.
I love what you just said. And I think if we kind of map that from the micro to the macro, you said, if we love and support, when we truly love and support each other, we don't have to agree. And just imagine if the whole world drunk that in for a second, like on every level. We don't 100%. Have to we just,
it'd be great.
Support each other. And I can relate to what you're saying. And even for people listening, I have found that partners sometimes in their resistance to what we want actually call us forward, because instead of seeking that external, validation or their praise or their yes, it forces us, especially when it's truly aligned for us and we know our values, it's like this inner roar comes forward and deepens our commitment. I've had that. I can relate to that. That's
so good. That's so true. Like, is it true for you?
Yeah.
And even if they don't agree. Yeah. It's like, is it true for you? It's like, oh, okay, it is, versus, I don't know, let me ask.
Yeah.
Is it true for you?
The soul says, nah, it's like I'm doing it anyway. Love that. Yeah. All right. Quick finish questions. These are kind of just short and sharp. So what would you do? What is your go-to to elevate your energy in a day? Like, what do you do if you're like, I need to feel some energy? I know I'm so much. I'm not trying to be like, I never feel like that, but I think some of the things that are great are like moving. Like I love exercising, yoga. I love lifting heavy weights. But it's so ridiculous, but standing in place and hopping like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. I know it's crazy, but I even do the hands. That will pump my ass up. I'm just like, I just jump up and down. And I'm like, oh, and then breathing. And then I'm like, yes, I'm so excited, So jumping up and down in place and looking like Tigger, do it down the street, everybody. It's amazing. I'm just laughing so hard because my partner calls me his Tigsy hummingbird because he thinks I'm like Tigger. This is just hilarious. But
sister, you're my sister.
Soul sisters. Okay, and then what is your go-to, or what would you recommend for anyone who wants to feel more empowered? So they're waking up, maybe they're running a story in their head and they're thinking they can't. Like, what flicks the switch to step into an embodied empowerment?
What will flick the switch? I think music will help with the energy side of things, and doing something, even if you have crazy stuff like kids in the morning, like light some incense, put some music, even with the kids being crazy. That always usually kind of helps the energy in the house and calms everything down for me internally. But really, I journal a lot. So I take my brain and I stamp my brain on paper. So I know, oh, okay, wow, that's a lot. No wonder I'm feeling this. Or what I'm thinking about, I don't get it out. So then I think I'm my thoughts. So I really try to take my brain out of my head and stamp it like on paper, and then disassociate from, I'm not that. That's just what's going on in my head. Awesome. Okay, cool. And it just gives me a quick, like, almost like, I know this is crazy, but it's like pooing.
I bet. I love it. I heard on one of your podcasts, you're like, if you've only just started listening, you need to know this about me. I talk about poo, which is so funny because I talk about poo too. I'm like, there's nothing better than just like a full evacuation and telling you so much about your health. So I totally
100%. Yeah,
like quote unquote shit inside. I get what you're saying. Like,
yes. 100%. I just think we're like emotionally constipated. Like I went and got a colonic at the retreat, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I have so many more metaphors now. Like so much stuck in our head. We don't know why we feel this way. We don't know, our mind is creating our feelings. Our thoughts are creating our feelings. So it's like, if you feel like crap, literally What are you thinking? So just dump your head on paper, blah, 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 and then just look at it and be like, and don't judge it. Don't even go back to it. It's just like, it's like crying. It's like shitting. It's like releasing. It's like, you're bloated. Can you let it out? Can you feel, can you cry without apologizing? Can you just be aware of what's going on? And that's that body awareness. If you don't know what is going on in your body, if you don't know that you're feeling depressed, you need to check in with what you're thinking. So I love journaling as a daily, I talk to myself on paper, basically.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that what you're really saying, again, as you've said, almost as a through line here is, and I think what is kind of the essential, if anyone is thinking, what is one belief I could update? What I'm really getting from Erika is you are not the story, you are not the thoughts. And as soon as you realize that, you can separate yourself from them and therefore have the freedom, the access, the availability, the actionability to move forward without them. And so, when you said before, your thoughts create your state, but you can also access your state to create new thoughts, right? Like with the music, as you said, and the jump. So but the key thing is that self-awareness. So when we notice our energy is flat, a great reminder to remember that's not normal. It's not, it's okay to be flat, but it's not normal to be flat. And so if we're feeling really flat, we can adjust state, or we can get those thoughts out and lighten our load, just like taking a big poop instead of holding in. Imagine if you held in all your shit all the time, like literally.
That's what we are, but we are literally walking around emotionally constipated, like, oh my God, and apologizing when we're crying. Do you apologize when you fart or shit on the toilet by yourself? Oh, I'm so sorry, toilet. No, you don't. You just let it out. It's got to come out. Body needs to cry. Body needs to poo. Body needs to sleep. Body needs to eat. We don't go, why does body need to eat? Why does body sleep? We just let it happen. So like, let that happen for yourself, you know?
Yes. All right. And so if we say, for instance, it's not going to happen, but let's say that this podcast suddenly deleted and all we had was this little capsule, this little soundbite from Erika that we could shove in a message in a bottle, blast on every billboard around the world, or just send a little voice note to everyone with a mobile phone. What is the one thing that you would love the world to know? You're like, I've learned a lot of things in life, but actually what it really boils down to, team, or just today, what I want you to remember is.
Yeah. So I think today, what I want you to remember is that, like, what if you were already enough and everything else was just one big distraction? Everything else was just a distraction and you were already enough and great.
Yes. Amen.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Erika, for your time today. You're just, I can feel your frequency, and I'm sure that's what people are just often plugging into, is that beautiful rawness, that vulnerability, and that shining bright light of love that you are. So thank you for the work that you do in the world and the way that you show up. And honestly, I'm a stand for women being women like you, their whole raw selves. Yes. So thank you so much. And we'll link to everything that you do. And of course, everyone can go and check out Erika. She has an amazing podcast as well. But thank you so much.
I thank you. And I appreciate you for the work that you're doing in the School of Growth and all of the people that you're impacting, and this actual podcast, which is all about raising frequency and helping and supporting each other. So what I'd love to say is, if anybody listens to this, please tag us both, so that we can reshare, and leave her reviews, review this podcast, please, because this woman is doing great work in the world. And lastly, as a gift to anyone who would like more support with confidence, I have these little 5 steps to confidence. So I'd love to offer it to your audience. It's just, after 10 years of researching the most confident women around the world and what people do, we realized there's really 5 things, and it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. The next step is your next move. And so we'd love to give that to the listeners if they want to create more confidence right now. So thank you.
So we can link to that too. That'll be in the notes. Drop down and go and grab that, because if you've learned anything from Erika and her story, it's that you can create change, and your life is your responsibility, and what a gift and a blessing it is, right, to step into who you're here to be. So big loves, Erika. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Definitely tag us with your big takeaways, and share the love, because we are all on this mission together. Yeah. Mwah.
Oh, yay.